Hey everyone, what is going on, and welcome back to another video from A Man Talks NRL SuperCoach. And this is the first edition of the Roundup, where we're going to be going through all the games and just my general thoughts on every match and how we all performed in SuperCoach. Let's get into it. So in terms of how my team has been performing for the first round of the season, I'm currently sitting on 1,293 points, and I think that's all the updates have been finalized, but there could still be some more throughout the day on Monday. But 1,293, I'm pretty happy with that score to begin the round. There were a few flops in there that I'm not too happy with, but very big gun players who came through for me at the end of the day. So I can't really be too mad at that score. I have seen a lot of big scores going around, so I'm not quite sure where that's going to put me in terms of, say, ranking, but let me know in the comments below how you guys fared in the first round. Let's get into the rest of the video. So I thought I'd do this video a little bit differently to my other videos, and I thought I would just go through every team's statistics through every game, so we could kind of just have some of the reference points in terms of the stats and numbers. So we'll start off with the Storm and Rabbitohs game. Obviously the Storm won this 26-18, and they had a really good start to the game. They just came out of the blocks flying, and just kind of showed all to us, we don't need Cam Smith, we're fine as it is. Obviously the big winner out of this game was Ryan Papenhuyzen, scoring the try, setting up tries, and the goal kicking as well. Just kicking those 5 goals gave him an extra 20 points, so that really bumped up his score well past the 100-point mark, which really does show that benefit of, if the Storm are firing and he's kicking goals, he himself is going to average really well this year. So the rest of the backline for the Storm was a pretty average kind of outing. I guess Olam, obviously with the 57, he did score that try, so if he took that away, he'd only be scoring 40 points. But, Adokar, Raymond Smith and George Jennings, all kind of getting around that low 30 mark. Not what you'd want as an owner, especially those who jumped on Raymond Smith, hoping that he could be a good kind of value option who might go up in value. Munster obviously just doing what Munster kind of does, 71 points without even breaking a sweat. He obviously scored that try really early in the game, and I don't own Munster. So when I saw him score that try, I was like, oh God, he's set up for a 100-point game, isn't he? And I don't have him in my team, but I actually thought coming out with 71, I thought as a non-owner, I felt pretty happy with. I thought he didn't do too much in the second half that concerned me, but obviously 71 points, you'd happily take that as an owner, looking involved as he always does. I think in terms of the forwards, the real kind of talking points out of the Storm, mainly before the game, were Christian Welch, Brandon Smith and Nelson. Welch with his 52 points came in about 50 minutes, so I think the minutes probably was a little bit down to maybe what a lot of people were expecting. I think they're probably hoping for maybe 55 minutes. There were points in the game he actually looked really, really tired. I think when he came off his spells from the field, he just looked absolutely gassed. And, I wouldn't be too concerned with that. It is the first round of the season. Guys are just getting their match fitness. And 52 points from him, at his price, I'm pretty happy with that. Brandon Smith, though, with that 45 is a little bit more of an issue. I think, obviously, people probably had higher expectation of his minutes, and I think he only played about 60. And obviously, Tyson Smoothy was a late minute call-up for the Storm, and he played a little bit of time at hooker, only about 11 minutes, I think, as you can see there. But yeah, overall, I think if you're a Brandon Smith owner, I wouldn't be just jumping off straight away. I would maybe be holding on for another week to see how he goes. Given I think a lot of people are probably hoping that averaged around the 60-point mark, I can understand that there's a little bit of frustration there. I would maybe just give it one more game, see how he goes, before maybe just selling him. In terms of that 41-point effort for Nelson, I don't think that's what owners were looking for. I think they were hoping for kind of that 50-point, potentially 60-point from him as well. So I think overall the forwards probably from the Storm were a little bit slightly disappointing, but I think I wouldn't be just rushing to jump off them at this stage. I would maybe just give it one more week and see how they go before maybe wanting to trade them out before their kind of price changes in round 3. So moving on to the Rabbitohs, I think the Rabbitohs themselves came back really well in that second half of that game, and showed, I think, their attacking potential and, why so many people have, tipped them to potentially be the premiership favourite this year. I think against a really good Melbourne outfit, after conceding a lot of points in the first half, they came back really strong and was able to put up a good fight in the second half and almost coming back, into the game. Latrell was kind of the main talking point of the Rabbitohs. He actually looked quite impressive, scoring 117 points, scoring a try of his own, just looking involved in the attack in general. And that left side of the Rabbitohs, I think, is where they're going to be directing all of their attack. That's going to be the side that you'd expect most of the ball to go down. So you can see his statistic there. He was just doing a bit of everything, tries, try assist, a couple of line breaks, a line break assist, some offloads, some tackle breaking in there as well. And that's what Latrell can give you as well. I think I kind of maybe talked him down a little bit before the start of the season, saying that he does have those stinker scores in him, but he can go big. And this is an example of him going big. And you know what? If you pick Latrell instead of, say, Papenhuyzen, you're probably winning here, given that you only scored about 7 points less, but he's about 100k cheaper. And that 100k you could have used somewhere else in your side. So I think Latrell, if you're an owner, you should be very happy with that. And given that they've got an easy game against the Manly Sea Eagles coming up, I think you can expect more points coming your way. Similar story, I think, with Cody Walker, getting that 82 points. He didn't actually, at times he just didn't look like he was fully involved in my opinion, but he came in with a couple of try assists, and that's all you really want in terms of, say, SuperCoach points. And that's just kind of, that's the way he'll get his points. He'll do a bit of tackling. He made 22 tackles, but being involved in the attack, 3 line break assists as well. I think a very, very solid performance from Cody Walker. And again, if you're an owner of him, you're pretty happy with that. Given that, one of the reasons I didn't go for him to begin the season was that I thought he was priced a little bit too above what his normal average is. But scoring 82, he's already kind of above, his average, which was 74. He was priced at, by the way. So I think, if he maintains this, he's not going to be going down in value, and he'll probably be going up. So I think if you're an owner, you're very happy with that. Alex Johnson as well with that 75 points, scoring a couple of tries, a couple of line breaks to go with that as well. I mentioned that his scores are really heavily dependent on him scoring tries because he just doesn't otherwise get his points from a lot of other avenues. But this is the thing, he does have that potential to score so many tries, right? And that left side of the Rabbitohs, I think, is their stronger attacking side. So, I think if you took a punt on him, congrats to you. I think that 75 points at his value, about 495k, is a really, really good output from him. On the opposite side of that, though, Josh Mansell with only 15 points. I don't think many people had him in his team, given he had a very high starting price at 595k. But if you do have him and getting that 15 points, that really is a stinker, and, would be concerned with that. Maybe I wouldn't. It's hard to say don't trade him out, don't rage trade him, but that if he can, even if he gets a 40-50 point game in his next one, he's going to go down massively in price, and you don't really want to be copying that to begin the season, especially you want to be targeting the guys who are going up. So I think if you do own Mansell, potentially it means trading him out in the first couple of rounds, but he's someone who I think if you're a non-owner, it's good that he's getting low scores now, and we can hopefully pick him up later when he drops in price. In terms of the forwards with the Rabbitohs, Damien Cook, again, 36 point effort, not too encouraging if you're an owner, especially given that you're forking out over 600k for him. You really want to be seeing those 60-70 plus point scores, but it just didn't look like too involved in the Rabbitohs attack in general. They really seemed like they just wanted to target on the sides, and he was just kind of merely being a distributor. I didn't really see him running out of dummy half that much. And that really is a shame, I think, you're for an owner, because that's what you really want, and you really want for him to be running and breaking tackles, in order to get those SuperCoach points. So I think there is potentially some concerning signs for Damien Cook. He did have, this is something I've mentioned in my video when I discussed the hookers. Someone like Damien Cook, he does have that massive upside to easily go 120 plus, but he sometimes does have that little bit of inconsistency, and this is unfortunately one of those examples, if you're an owner of him. So I think if you're a non-owner, it's good that he's going low, we can get him priced hopefully a bit cheaper, but at least if you're an owner, you have all the flexibility of downgrading to any kind of option if you do want to trade him out. You can go down to your mid-ranges, or even cheaper than that to say a Jacob Little price player. But I think, Damien Cook, not a great showing, but again, I would have faith still over the season that he would still be averaging 65 points plus a game. In terms of the forwards, Jai Arrow, I think, looked really impressive when he came off the bench. He looked really involved, was running hard, doing a lot of tackling, and he got 70 points coming off the bench, which really is quite an achievement. Obviously, I was a bit of a naysayer of him to begin the season, given that I said his points and his stats are kind of in the decline over the past few years. But that 70 point effort is pretty encouraging, and I think if you are looking to maybe say downgrade from say Brandon Smith to Jai Arrow, that could be a potential trade that you might want to do. Maybe I wouldn't do it in the first round. I'd want to have another look and see how the minutes kind of play out for them. One is going to go up in value, one's going to go down. It makes some sense to make that switch so that you can kind of gain that price rise. And Murray as well with that 53 points. Again, he was very busy. He made 45 tackles, which you'd kind of expect out of him playing out lock. But aside from that, he didn't really offer too much in terms of the attacking potential. He does have a try in his game for sure. I think it just wasn't one of those nights for him in SuperCoach wise. I think I wouldn't be super concerned if I owned him. I would still hold him. But probably just unfortunately just not his night in terms of SuperCoach. But that's my wrap up of the Storm and Souths game. Alright, so next up we've got the Knights versus the Bulldogs, which the Knights won 32 points to 16. I did watch bits and pieces of this match. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I thought there really were some good signs, especially if you had some players from the Knights I think we'll start off with kind of the forwards because they did really most of the points damage in SuperCoach. Clemmer and Saifidi, I mean, I didn't really strongly recommend the Newcastle props, but they performed really well in this first game. I won't even talk about Saifidi for a second. Just Clemmer alone, he played 74 minutes, which is crazy. Wasn't really expecting that kind of minutes from him. For him to come away with that 82 points is massive, and kind of justifies his really high starting price. And Dan Saifidi, look, I'm not going to expect him to get 2 tries every game, but yeah, if you jumped on Saifidi, congrats to you. 128 is an absolutely massive effort. In terms of their kind of base work rate, they still did a lot of tackling. Clemmer made 30, Dan Saifidi 23, sorry. And obviously they'd have a lot of runs, and Clemmer actually looked like he was offloading quite a bit, which is a good sign, I think, because towards the back end of last year when his points did start to drop off, he really wasn't offloading that much. So I think the fact that he was offloading is a really, really good sign if you're an owner, given that it's a good way for him to get extra SuperCoach points. And Jaden Brayley as well, getting that 86 points, playing for the full 80 minutes. I think if you got him to begin the season, really, really good signs from him. Obviously busy, in terms of the tackling, making 43 of them, but he also looked very involved in the attacking plays. He obviously set up, I think, Dan Safidi's try close to the try line, so you got the try assist and the line break assist there as well. So yeah, I think if you got Brayley, very, very good sign. Then at his price, that 86 point effort is massive. It seems like he's really going to go up in value if he keeps that up. And the Knights do have a very good draw to begin the season, so he's definitely someone I'm eyeing up potentially how I can maybe fit into my squad before the round 3 price rises. And Barnett with 105, really good effort from him, playing the full 80. He obviously was able to get a boost in his points from scoring a try of his own, and all that goal kicking he did. I think he kicked 6 goals, which adds about 24 points. So 41 points alone coming from just attacking. And even without that 41, I think he still would have been scoring in the high 60s, which is a very good output, I think, for your second row player. So I did briefly mention him as like a kind of a pod option to begin the season. And I think, he's looking the goods. And if he does, he'll keep up the goal kicking up until Ponga comes back. But, that still gives him like maybe 4 or 5 rounds of goal kicking benefit. And that does kind of coincide with the Knights' good early draw. So I think he's also a good option if you're looking to get him into your team. Say, if you own Cam Murray and you're looking to downgrade potentially, Mitch Barnett is a good candidate. He'll be able to offer a lot of attacking points. Obviously, I wouldn't expect him to be scoring a try every week. So I think, Mitch Barnett had a great game as well. Connor Watson as well. He was named on the bench to begin this game, just kind of in the initial team news before the start of the game. But scoring 53 points, very happy with that. Didn't actually end up playing him because of that decision. I thought I would swap him out for Jacob Little, who we'll touch on later. But again, he probably did benefit in the minutes, given that Kurt Mann did go down with that injury. And so he was filling in at that 5'8" role, and he was able to set up Mitch Barnett's try. But yeah, 53 points from him at his price just shows the great cash cow potential he has, and he's going to be definitely a hold. The only slight concern is that he was named on the bench, and given that Kurt Mann did go down with that injury, we're still not quite sure on how he was originally, intended to be used off the bench, given that he just had to fill that role out of the circumstances. But I think still, we'll take the 53 points and we'll go on to next week. If you jumped on any of the Knights' backs, like say Tex Hoy or Bradman Best, decent showings from them. I think at his price, obviously Tex Hoy with that 43 points. He obviously lost that benefit of the goal kicking to Barnett, which was a bit of a shame if you're an owner of him, but he was able to get a try assist and a line break assist, which really bumped up his score. And in general, he looked pretty decent, and for that 43 points, offered good value. And Bradman Best, obviously, he was very, very expensive, but he did score a try, but still only scored 56, which is, obviously his minutes were down, given that he had, I think, a bit of a syndesmosis issue. Wanted to kind of keep an eye on, I think, as well in the Team List Tuesday, just to see if there's any kind of comment on when he's expected to be back, or if he's fit for round 2. But overall, I think it was a pretty good showing from the Knights, and I think a lot of the highly owned players like Brayley, Barnett potentially, Connor Watson, they all did good for us. So I think very happy with how the Knights performed in SuperCoach. And so moving on to the Bulldogs, I thought the Bulldogs overall were actually pretty decent this game, and I thought they did show some good signs, and you can already kind of see a bit of the influence of, say, Trent Barrett to the attack. I thought Carl Flanagan himself had a really decent game. He's got 3 try assists and scored 78 points, which is a really good outing from him if anyone jumped on him. I myself didn't, because I wanted to kind of wait and see on how the Bulldogs performed, but there were definitely some encouraging signs there. Jake Averillo, unfortunately, getting only the 18 points really is a shame. He was someone I was actually quite keen on to begin the season, but just couldn't quite fit into the side. Obviously, I've kind of dodged a bit of a first round bullet, given that he only scored 18, which is a shame for owners. So I think I'd kind of wait and see maybe on him. It's very tempting, I think, to just go down to, say, a cheap centre you might not have. Even someone like, say, James Roberts, who scored higher than him, who's cheaper price than him and more likely to go up in price. So I think Averillo, my approach is always to kind of wait and see for another round before making trades, but I do understand if you've got other issues in your team, like, say, injuries that you also need to take care of, and you don't want to be missing out on, say, price changes before round 3. I can completely understand people wanting to maybe trade him, but I think I would still wait and see, because I think he's one of those guys who maybe over long term, over the season, will do well for you. In terms of the forwards, Hetherington and Ogden, I think, were two they became a bit more popular prop options, given that they were named to start in Teamless Tuesday. But, Hetherington's minutes were quite good. He's got 59 minutes, but he only scored the 35 points, which is, at his price, 35 is okay. But I think given that he played those high minutes, people were hopefully probably expecting maybe 40 to 50 points from him, and that would really have bumped up his value long term. But I think that 35 points is, it's not the best, and I think I wouldn't just be selling him straight away, but one to keep an eye on as well. If he does again have if he again doesn't have like a fantastic game in terms of SuperCoach, he was never going to be a long-term hold anyway. He was more just going to be an initial start of season cash cow. But the thing is, if he's only scoring around the 35, I don't expect him to be making too much money. So again, one to keep an eye on to see how he goes in the next few rounds. Aside from that, obviously Adam Elliott scored the try, got 74 points. Really not someone I considered, to be honest. But he did show that in the trials he can score a try, and he did so again against the Knights. So one to keep an eye on, I think. I would maybe potentially look at him, say, if the Bulldogs draw does soften up a bit. And Josh Jackson, playing the 75 minutes at lock, giving you a pretty solid 57 points, all basically in work rate, making 45 tackles. So I think, if you own Josh Jackson, that's kind of what you got him for, just to give you that really solid 55 to 60 points, and that his price offers good value. So I'd be pretty happy if I was a Josh Jackson owner. But overall, probably not too much for me to comment on the Bulldogs. I thought in terms of how they played, it was pretty decent. Few blips from some of their SuperCoach players, but also some few highlights, like, say, Carl Flanagan. So next up, we got the Broncos versus the Eels. And I thought I watched this game and it was actually quite enjoyable. Broncos going down 16 to 24 to the Parramatta Eels. Obviously, a lot of SuperCoach relevance in this game in terms of, say, Jermaine Asako, Tessie New, Tavita Pangai, Jake Turpin, Jordan Ricky. They're all very commonly owned players in SuperCoach. And I think overall there are some encouraging signs. I think they performed quite well overall as a team and also for SuperCoach. Tessie New getting that 36 points, mainly in work rate. He almost scored that try as well, that he just bobbled over the try line. Over the dead ball line. But 36 points from him, very happy to see that at his price. He will definitely go up in value if he maintains that average. So I think he's definitely a good hold. And if you don't have him to begin the season, maybe look to say do a downgrade. If you say have Jake Averillo or Raymond Smith, but you didn't have Tessie New, I think he's one I would target because you'll make a profit just on that trade alone. Plus he'll go up in value most likely. David Mead, bit of a bolter out of nowhere. Scored a try, got a couple of line breaks, and getting that 77 points is really, really strong. And he's also very priced. I think he's priced very similar to Tessie New. So if you did go the pod option and go him instead, I know he's not someone I considered at all. But yeah, maybe someone to keep an eye on that we should see. If he keeps up if he's able to keep that up, I think he would then become a good, decent center value. But there's so many other options at center. It's hard to always fit all these guys in. Milford with the 69 points is actually really, really interesting as well. Obviously, he had a really poor 2020 season, but he started this game off really well. He put in that beautiful kick for Xavier Coates to score his try, and he also had a hand in another try as well. Getting that 69 points, I think, is a really strong effort from Milford and a bit of a throwback to what we know that he can produce. I don't know too many people who might have gone there. I think they might have all been a bit scarred from, say, last season. But if you did go there, congrats to you. I think I don't know quite what he's priced at. I think around the 300k mark. So yeah, but Milford, I think, very decent option. One to keep an eye on, I think, how they perform. I think the Broncos do have still a few tough games coming up, but there were some encouraging signs from them, definitely, and from Milford himself. Jake Turpin was a guy a few people had asked me about, and I thought he was going to be a decent option given that he was looking likely to play 80 minutes, which he did. And he scored 61 points, which is actually really strong at his price. And he almost scored that try at the end of the game too, and that really could have bumped up his score even more. So I think he's definitely someone to keep an eye on too. He's around that 390k mark, so to be honest, if I was to go in that kind of price bracket, I'd probably be looking to go to someone like Jaden Brayley instead, given that he is cheaper, and probably what I would consider playing in a better side. But, if you did jump on Turpin as a bit of a pod, I think that's a really good shout. And that 61 point effort you really can't be too mad about. The unfortunate story here with the Broncos, I guess, is Matt Lodge only scoring 17 points. Obviously he was a very popular cheap front row option that a lot of people were going to look to have as a bit of an early season cash cow, especially with Payne Haas being out. But I think it's basically now confirmed that with his hamstring, it's at least 2 to 4 weeks. And the best case scenario is maybe round 3 or 4 return. And that basically just coincides with Payne Haas returning. So I guess any kind of benefit of Lodge is now probably gone, given that by the time he comes back, Haas is going to be back, and then his minutes are probably going to reduce. So I think for me, given that injury, unfortunately, he's probably going to be one that you're going to have to trade out. There are a lot of good options in the front row forward cheap range. Guys like Stefano, Spencer Leniu, who looked quite good. Or, if you downgrade another position, you can upgrade Lodge. Jordan Ricky getting the 40 points, I think is fine as well. People were probably hoping for more than 40 points given he was playing the full 80 minutes, but the fact that he got the 80 minutes is a really good sign. And scoring 40 points at his price means he will go up in value, so pretty happy to have him as a hold. I did play him in my reserves as well, which maybe wasn't the best call, but 40 points, I can't really be too mad at that in round 1, especially when scores are fluctuating quite a bit. And really Pat Carrigan just doing Pat Carrigan things, getting 67 points in his 80 minutes, just being a workhorse, making a lot of tackles, making a lot of runs. Aside from that, I think John Asiata also had a bit of a burner, but playing 40 minutes, getting the 33 points, kind of scoring what he was, what he's priced at. So I don't think there's too much cash cow value from him coming off the bench. It's only really, I think, if he gets maybe a starting gig that he'll get up in value. But aside from that, Broncos overall I thought did quite well in this game, but unfortunately the Eels just had their number. So just touching on the Eels now, I think there was a lot of good signs in a lot of Eels players, and some bad signs for unfortunately one that I owned. So we'll start off with Gutho getting the 75 points. Got the try assist, and just looking involved as he always does with the Eels. He just seems to be popping up everywhere. So I think if you own Gutherson, you can't be too, upset about the 75 points. I think what's upsetting is seeing all the other fullbacks around him like Teddy, Pappy, Latrell, all going over 100 points. So I think if you want Gutho as a bit of a pod option, it's not a bad result, but it's not the exact result you're probably hoping for. Ferguson getting the 92 points is absolutely massive though. He didn't score a try for 17 rounds last year, and he scores a try in his first game this season. So I think if you jumped on him as a bit of a pod option at 350k, looks exceptional value. Obviously doing a lot of work as he always does, a lot of runs out of his own end, but scoring the try, getting the try assist with a couple of line breaks thrown in there as well. Obviously I wouldn't expect him to be getting that much attacking output every game, but he definitely showed his potential to go big with that 90 point effort. Definitely someone I think I might be looking at in the centres, given that the Eels opening draw is good, and so I'll be keeping an eye on him and potentially maybe looking to bring him in. Dylan Brown though, who I do have in my team, that 39 points, it's really hard to see that in my points listing. I think he's kind of one of the flops for my week. I wouldn't say he flopped in the way he performed in the game, he almost scored that try at the very beginning of the game, and I thought, if he just got that would have set up the game so well for me. Obviously doing a lot of work in terms of his base stats, making 27 tackles with a few runs thrown in there as well, which is kind of why I got him, because I thought, if he doesn't have any kind of attacking output, at least his floor isn't too bad. He scored the 39 points. Really didn't do too much aside from a forced dropout. So I think next time I'd just be hopeful that if he's able to get a little bit more involved in the attack, maybe set up a try, score a try of his own, then I think we could see him getting a good points score. So someone I'm still, given that there's so many other well-performing players this round, and he's priced at that 560k mark, he's definitely someone who I'm not keen to kind of just trade straight away, but someone I might have to in terms of creating value elsewhere in my team so I can jump on some price changes. But someone I'm just trying to consider and trying to hold on to as well, because I did pick him for a reason. I want to keep some faith in him as well, and he didn't look uninvolved. I think it just wasn't his night in terms of SuperCoach. Reed Marnie with that massive 134 points, not something I expected at all. He just looked involved everywhere. He scored a try of his own. He set up Paulo's try. He had a couple of line breaks, 51 tackles. Just the kind of game that I would expect from someone like a Cam Smith. So if you jumped on him as a bit of a pod option, really impressive. Again, it's probably going to be the common thing I'm going to be saying is kind of I'll wait and see on him and see how he goes as well. Given I think he's priced like that 450k, 470k mark from memory. So it's a little bit awkward price given that there's cheaper options than him who also scored very well this round. But pretty decent showing, and if he can I don't expect him obviously to produce those attacking numbers consistently, but I do expect that kind of base stat, high amount of tackles from him. So he does have a pretty decent floor. Junior Paulo with that 100-point effort, I think is also, if you jumped on him, great work, 60 minutes as well, which is a really encouraging sign for him. Was able to score that try at the very end of the game, and combine that with a line break as well, really did help bump up his score. But even if you took away that line break and try, I think he was still going to be set to maybe score the 65 to 70 point, which is what you want from someone like Junior Paulo, doing what he always does with a lot of offloads, a lot of run meters and decent tackling effort. So I think, Paulo, great shout if you jumped on him. But Paulo just showed, I think, why he's probably, in my opinion, going to be maybe a top 3 front row forward. I think could be Payne Haas, Junior Paulo, and maybe Takiaho come season's end. But really good effort from him. Ryan Madison with that 67 points. Again, he looked pretty involved. He was able to get a try contribution for that little flick pass he did at the end of the game. Otherwise, looked very involved with a lot of tackling, with a lot of runs. And that's just kind of what you expect out of Madison. He's always going to be, honestly, getting you like that 65-point minimum. I think he only went below 60 once last season, and I think that might have been his injury-affected game. So he's just the model of consistency, not someone I'm looking to do any tinkering. He can go down in value. I'll probably still hold him. It doesn't really bother me too much. But not much else I think to talk about the Eels. Nathan Brown with that 55 points. The minutes, slight concern at 57. I think I was thinking that with the Eels bench, he was, all the Eels forwards are going to be playing a lot higher minutes. But I think, Nathan Brown getting 57 was a little bit lower than what I was expecting. But in those 57 minutes, getting 55 points, pretty decent showing from him. I guess just not quite the level that you'd want from him. You'd probably be wanting around that 60 to 65 if you jumped on him as a pod. But overall, I think the Eels performed very well. The main concern for me, I think, will be Dylan Brown and just kind of seeing how he performs in the next game. They do have the Storm, which is a tough game. So I'm not quite sure how he's going to go. If he does have another low-scoring game, he might just be someone I have to trade out at that point just to jump on a few price changes. But definitely some highlights in the Eels and Broncos game. So next up, we've got the Warriors and Titans game, with the Warriors winning that 19-6. This is one of the games that I wasn't able to watch. I was just only able to watch the highlights. But from what I could see, the Warriors' defense looked really impressive. With some good try-saving tackles from Tuivasa-Sheck. And overall, very just very solid in defense, with the Titans only scoring 6 points. I think this game overall was quite low scoring from SuperCoach. I don't think anyone except maybe 2 players went above 70 in the entire game. But there were definitely some good talking points. I think just looking at those scores, Nicarima with that 74 points. Obviously, he did have the try and the goal kicking too, and kind of boost up his numbers. Harris Tavita with that 35-point effort. In the end of the day, I was deciding between Harris Tavita and Fogarty, and I went Fogarty, and that gave me 5 points, which is obviously splitting hairs, to be honest. Adam Fanor-Blake with that 65 points is a really encouraging sign in only 58 minutes. I think he had a lot of you did a lot of offloading, a lot of tackling, some good run meters as well. So that's a really encouraging sign for Fanor-Blake owners. He's a bit of a pod option in the front rows as well. But very solid outing from him. And he looks like he's going to add a lot to that Warriors forward pack. And in general, they're just going to be a really high offloading team. Tohu Harris just being the model of consistency that he always is. 66 points in 80 minutes. You're never going to go wrong with Tohu Harris. He's always going to be giving you that 60-point to 65-point mark. Bailey Sirenen was probably the winner out of the Warriors side, given that he got 74 points with the try thrown in there as well. And his try was quite good, just one of those kind of crash ball tries. Wouldn't be expecting a try from him every game, but, if you jumped on him as he was named in the starting lineup for the Warriors, obviously, that's a good shout. I just wouldn't be expecting 74 points from him every game. And the same with Leeson Armour with that 69 points, really inflated, I think, with that try, and the line break to go with it as well. So I know he is a cheap kind of front row forward option, but I wouldn't be recommending him solely because he just got 69 points. Obviously, we have to look at it and note there was a try in there as well. And I think if you take away that try and the line break, which would take away about 30 points, we're looking at a 39-point game from him, which to be honest is still decent at his price point. It just wouldn't be jumping on the fact alone that he got the 69 points. But aside from that, pretty decent game overall performed by the Warriors. But in terms of SuperCoach, there wasn't really too many kind of highlights, I think. Same can be said for the Titans. I think, in terms of the commonly owned players, we're looking at, Dave Fafita, Tino Fasumla-Awi, and Brian Kelly. Tino and Fafita both scoring the 60 points. I wouldn't really be too kind of concerned about that. It's a pretty decent effort in their first game out for the Titans. And obviously we can understand that, they're still fitting into this the style of play of the Titans. So, the attacking combinations might not be fully formed yet. So it's not too surprising, I think, to see that they only scored 6 points. Yes, part of it, I think you can credit the Warriors' defense, but part of it could also just be the Titans' attack, maybe just not completely gelling as of yet. But, if you own Fifita and Tino, 60 points without any kind of attacking upside, I think is a good sign. And shows that they have that capability. If they can throw a try or line break in there as well, they can get their scores up to that 80 to 90 point mark. Fifita didn't play the full 80. I think he had a bit of a foot infection apparently before the game, but I would expect that 71 minutes, to actually be 80 minutes. And Tino getting the 65 minutes, I think, is a pretty decent minutes showing from him. And scoring 60 is in that time is a good effort. Aside from that, in terms of the backs, Brimson did very well with that 64 points, getting the try assist and the line break for himself as well. Given that the Titans only scored 6 points and he comes over 64 is a good effort. The unfortunate thing for him is that he's priced more expensive than guys like Pappenhausen and Latrell, who scored pretty much double his points. And if you own Brian Kelly, that 47 points without any kind of attacking upside except for that line break assist, I think is a good indicator of his potential. But obviously, he's priced pretty expensive at that kind of 55, I think, average. So, he's not quite meeting it there. But I wouldn't be too concerned if you have Brian Kelly. Getting the 47 points is still decent without any tries in there. So definitely wait and see, given that the Titans draw is also very good as well. And Jamal Fogarty, who I also have, scoring that 40 points without any attacking upside except for a couple of forced dropouts, and he scored like 1 goal. I'm not too concerned. It's obviously not ideal, but at his price, if he's scoring around the 50 point mark or 55, he'll go up in value. So I'll probably wait on him. I don't think I'll be looking to trade him out anytime soon, unless he just has another run of stinker games, and I just have to then. But yeah, overall, I guess not too many talking points out of this game overall in terms of SuperCoach. I think if you own any of the Titans or Warriors players, I'd just mainly be looking to hold. But yeah, otherwise wouldn't really be rage trading, I think, anyone who performed low in this game. So next up, we have the Roosters shellacking of the Sea Eagles 46-4. Obviously, the main talking point out of this was that number 1, James Tedesco, with that absolutely insane 162 points. Luckily for me, I captained him, so he scored 300 and something points. Absolutely amazing. Getting his hat trick, 3 try assists, line break, just doing what Teddy does, just being involved everywhere in the play. And this is why, if you're a Teddy non-owner, it's so hard to watch these games with him, because he can easily just rack up all the points. And so I think a lot of people's scores will be very high this week, given that he was very commonly owned player, and also very highly captained. And this is the added benefit of why you pay so much for someone like Teddy, is that you can put the captaincy on him, and that you're reliably going to be getting in the high scores. Obviously, you could argue some hindsight in there. It's easy to say, oh yeah, you can always captain because he's going to get you 160 points. He's not going to get 160 points every week, but just knowing that he has that in his game just makes him a very reliable captain option. Brett Morris as well, getting the hat trick. The pair of them both getting hat trick. I actually looked at Brett Morris and I thought, there's no way he can keep up what he did last season. And then he goes off and starts the season with 125 points. But yeah, obviously scored all of his points from his tries, a couple of line breaks. The one disappointing thing in that Roosters backline for me is Lachlan Lamb, who I did reserve. Overall, he just not the SuperCoach point effort that I would want to be seeing from Lachlan Lamb. I would hope for hopefully more like then say 40 points from him. It probably didn't help as well that Jake Friend went out with the concussion, and so he had to fill in at dummy half, but I think he still defended at 5'8". Obviously, we'll have to wait on Teamless Tuesday. I would expect that if they do rest Jake Friend, then Lachlan Lamb would maybe move into that number 9 role, or they might call on someone like Freddie Lussick, I think. But yeah, Lachlan Lamb is definitely someone I'm keeping an eye on. I'm not sure, I don't know if I would trade him out this round, but definitely someone I'm keeping an eye on. If he gets another game where he scores like in the 30s, I think I'm going to have to make that switch, potentially down to say Matt Moylan, who performed pretty well, because I don't want to be losing so much value on Lachlan Lamb to begin the season already. But yeah, given that the Roosters performed so well in this game, everyone performed pretty well. Luke Keary with that 70-point effort, being involved as he would with his couple of try assists. He did have a bit of hamstring cramping, but from what I've heard, it shouldn't be too much of an issue for round 2. And Takayaho with that 76-point effort. The minutes are slightly concerning, only playing the 43. I think that is something I probably failed to mention, beginning of the season, was that when the Roosters are really high up in a game, they do tend to rest their forwards, like say Takayaho. And obviously he got a bit of a junk time try assist to Crichton at the end of the game, which did help boost up his score. But, he was able to get, 4 goals, which helped kind of boost up his score overall. So the minutes were slightly concerning, and I do understand that his score is probably inflated a little bit with that try assist at the end. but I'll take the 76 points. That's what I, that's what I wanted him for. And Angus Crichton with a 98, obviously really bumped up by the try, but again, he looked very solid. Even without that try, if you take that away, he would have scored 80 points. So yeah, definitely a good player to hold. Unfortunately, he is, I think, facing a suspension for at least 1 or 2 weeks, potentially for a crusher tackle. So we'll have to wait and see what the outcome of that is. Hopefully, if it's just for 1 week, I think I'll hold him, because I know I'm going to want him back straight away in my team. So I don't think it's worth, burning a trade to get him out and then another one to get him back in. If it's 2 weeks, it's a different story. Might have to reconsider that a little bit more, because for 2 weeks for someone at his price, it is hard to sometimes justify leaving that on the bench. If it's for just 1 week, I think I'll be holding on to him, given that I think he's a gun. That 98-point effort just shows that. And Tupanua, who's also someone who a couple of people had asked me about. I wasn't too hot on him, given that I don't think he has the base stats and that he's very reliant on the attacking stats. But I did also mention that he does get that, and he definitely, he scored 1 try in that game with a line break, and he was very close to getting a second as well. I think it just got overruled by the video ref. So that 75-point effort easily could have been in the 90s or pushing in even 100. So I think Tupanua, if you did jump on him and not listen to me, good on you. That's a very good effort for round 1. I think he's someone I'm also having a think about. I wouldn't have him as, say, my third second row forward, but maybe as my fourth, like first reserve second row forward. I think he'll be a good value option. I think if he's able to keep up this kind of output, definitely one who's going to go up in value. So definitely someone I'm going to be keeping an eye on. But yeah, apart from that, I think overall the Roosters just showed us how good they are overall as a team. And James Tedesco is the main talking point here. If you don't have him, this is why, get him into your team. He's not going to go down in value even if he gets like another 70 or an 80. So yeah, would highly recommend getting James Tedesco into your side. Moving on to the Sea Eagles, again, they just didn't look good overall in this game. There were some early signs. When they scored that try, the game was kind of close, but then the Roosters just blew them off the park for the rest of the match. Just not really too much to talk about here, I think, in terms of SuperCoach. Dylan Walker was one person who I think there was a bit of interest in, given that he was named at fullback, but he just looked out of sorts at times, under the high ball at times. He just didn't look completely confident, and just only getting the 18 points, I think, not a great effort from him, given that he's priced in that kind of mid 300k mark. And Jason Saab, obviously, in such a low scoring game, he doesn't have a super high work rate, and only getting the 11 points, I think. I hope you didn't play him and you just kind of left him on your bench if you have him as a cheap centre wing option. But obviously, I wouldn't expect 11 points every game, but I guess it just shows that his floor is not that high. He really is dependent on attacking points and tries to get his points. Without Tom Trbojevic, just don't see how he's going to get so many of them. Cherry Evans, it wasn't his best game. He had a lot of handling errors, and I think, he tried his best, but the 28-point effort just really wasn't that good. Apart from that, Jake Trbojevic with that 61-point effort, playing the 80 minutes is kind of the bread and butter of what he does. A lot of tackling, a lot of work rate. But yeah, overall, didn't see too much overall from the Sea Eagles in the actual game, plus in SuperCoach. I think, although Andrew Davey actually looked quite good when he came off the bench, getting that 34 points in 35 minutes, definitely someone I'm going to be keeping an eye on, because if he does ultimately get a starting gig, and he's, looking to play 80 minutes, I think he's someone I'll definitely be looking at to get in my team at about 330k. He looked really good when he came on the field. But yeah, apart from that, not a happy game for the Sea Eagles, both in the NRL and in SuperCoach. So next up, we've got the Panthers versus the Cowboys, where the Panthers won very comfortably, 24 points to 0. And there were a lot of good talking points out of the Panthers. I think we'll go Nathan Cleary, that 103 point effort. He updated massively. I think he was at 75 pre-updates, and he's just gone up huge. And I guess this kind of shows that it doesn't seem like he has to do that much, and he just gets massive scores. He just has a hand in everything. He'll get a couple of try assists, he'll get the goal kicking. He's very solid in defense and actually makes quite a lot of tackles. He had some runs, just gets his points from every way that you can think of. And that 103-point effort, very, very solid. Very happy to have him in my team. Jerome Luai, obviously a bit of hindsight, but I probably wish that I did that switch from Brown to Luai before the beginning of the round, given that, Luai scored 40 points higher than Dylan Brown. And Luai, again, looked really good on that left side for the Panthers with a couple of try assists. And Brian To'o, my God, it was so hard watching this game, not having him in my team. I kind of talked him up as, if there was any one gun centre wing player I'd go for, it would have been Brian To'o. And that game just showed why. He did score the try and was very, very close to scoring a second. If he had just got the ball down for that second one, he would have been looking at a 100-point game. But he just looks so good. He's such a strong runner of the ball, just gets tackle breaks for fun. And he's got a really solid work rate coming out of his own end. So that 84-point effort, honestly, To'o, I think out of this whole game is the one person who I'm getting a fear of not owning. And I think I'll be looking to get him into my team like ASAP. His current price is 520k. And I don't know when he's going to go down in price if he keeps his kind of effort up. And combine that with the Panthers' good opening draw. Yeah, I'm really seeing how I can get him into my team. He just looks scary good for SuperCoach. Obviously, Dylan Edwards had a really solid game at 96. I kind of mentioned in my fullback video that he's not someone who I see as having good upside. He kind of has, made me look like a fool on that one with that 96-point effort. Looked really good with the try and a line break, and just in general looking very busy. Opposite of Staines with that 18-point effort. Some people were saying he's a bit of a trap going into the season, given that, at that 300k mark, everyone's just going off him from that six tries he scored last season in those 2 games, which I can kind of understand. We haven't really seen too much aside from him. My thought process on him was that he was so highly owned and fairly cheap that if you owned him and he did bad, everyone would kind of be sharing the pain. But if you didn't own him and he did well, it would feel a lot worse. So I kind of was happy to go with Staines in my side. But that 18-point effort, I guess, shows he doesn't quite have, say, the work rate of some of those other centre wingers, like, say, Brian To'o. And it just wasn't his night in terms of scoring tries. He had a couple of opportunities down the right side. On occasion, Momorowski went himself, or Staines just wasn't able to quite make it to the try line. So I think, some concern there, given that he only scored the 18 points in the game without tries. I would hope for hopefully a bit more than that in terms of, say, base numbers. Wouldn't be looking to trade him out straight away, given the Panthers' opening draw. Might just be someone I have to hold and cop it. But yeah, we'll see how I go. Somehow, if I could do a Staines to To'o, I would probably do that move. But that's like a 200k difference I'll have to find somewhere else in my team. Maybe Dylan Brown to Matt Moylan, maybe we'll see. In terms of the forwards, some good signs and some bad ones. I think the good was Spencer Leniu off the bench. He looked really strong in his runs, and in his 32 minutes, scoring 46 points is amazing. Given his price at 218k, amazing. If he keeps it up, he'll be a great cash cow option. If you don't have him in your team, but you say have Matt Lodge, that makes perfect sense to make that trade. Same with Hetherington to an extent, less so given that Lodge is obviously an immediate trade out for his injury. Hetherington based on just kind of his performance. But yeah, Spencer Leniu looked really good. Moses Leota didn't look that great, to be honest, and I think Leniu had a greater impact than him. Potentially that might mean that Leniu can get a starting role, we'll see. But if he does, I think that really then boosts his cash cow potential even more. Kurt Capewell with that 68 points, very happy to have him in my team. He went over for that first try. And him and Cleary look to have a pretty decent combination going on the right side of the field. So very happy to have him. Maybe some slight concern. I think he only scored maybe like 40 points in base in that 67 minutes. But if you can get even 45 to 50 points from someone in your starting centre, that's pretty solid. And he did look very attacking. So while yes, the try did kind of boost up his points, I do expect that he might have that in his game. So I think I wouldn't be too concerned about seeing that 68 points, including a try. Api Coruscant, though, with only the 31 points in the 48 minutes, really is kind of a concerning sign. I thought he was going to be an 80-minute hooker, but Tyrone May, I think, came on and did a bit of a spell at number 9, and just the 31 points from Coruscant really is disappointing. Obviously, he wasn't able to get in on any of the attacking points. So if you own Coruscant, I think that definitely is a concern. The one benefit you do have is that, at his price point, you can go down to, say, like a Jaden Brayley, Jake Turpin, or even cheaper, to, like, say, Connor Watson if you don't have him already. So you do have that kind of advantage. But yeah, that 31 points really is concerning, and I think you can maybe wait and see how they go in the next game and see what his minutes are then. But yeah, you've got that advantage of being able to downgrade him after, so I wouldn't say just rage trade him out after the first round. But yeah, not really too encouraging, I think, from Coruscant. Overall, the rest of the forwards kind of did their job. Fisher Harris with his, typical work rate of 61 points, pretty solid effort from him. Liam Martin off the bench with the 43 points, pretty decent. What was good to see was that when Liam Martin did come off the bench, Kickout went off, and then Capewell then moved to the left edge, with Liam Martin going to the right. So that is a good sign for Capewell in terms of his minutes, and I would be expecting him to be playing around that 70 to 80 minute mark. So getting a second row forward playing that many minutes in your centre wing spot is a really good advantage. But yeah, overall the Panthers just look like they picked up where they left off from last season, and had a really good showing in this game. Same cannot be said for the Cowboys, just similar problems to what they had last year. Their end of play, attacking options just weren't there. And in overall, I don't think the Cowboys are too SuperCoach relevant in terms of the players. Like Val Holmes is one player we considered, but playing on the wing, only getting that 20 points, not a great effort from him. And the big one, I think, is Taumalolo with only that 36 points and the 51 minutes he played. Obviously, there was talk that before the season, Taumalolo's minutes were going to be reduced and be more used as an impact player. I mean, just seeing him sitting on the bench for so long when the Cowboys had no go forward was really odd to see. And by the time he came on, it was hard for him to make the kind of impact, I guess. So that 36 points is really, really discouraging, and the 51 minutes not good at all. So I think if you're a Taumalolo owner, I would probably be looking to get rid, given that there's such a wealth of second row forward options who are cheaper than him, and he's definitely going to go down in value if he keeps up that kind of point scoring effort. Obviously, I wouldn't expect 36 from him every game, but just knowing now that's in his average and in his rolling break even, I would expect him to be going down in price come round 3. So probably someone I would be looking to sell. Aside from that, not too much more relevance, I think, in terms of the Cowboys, in terms of SuperCoach. Obviously, Reece Robson was potentially a consideration, but he's not playing the 80 minutes given that Jake Granville came on for him at number 9. And Michael Morgan, 45 point effort's actually not too bad, but yeah, at 5'8" position and halfback, there's so many other options who are cheaper than him who's scored similar, so I wouldn't be recommending really anyone from the Cowboys at this stage. So moving on to the first of our Sunday games was the Canberra Raiders versus the West Tigers, with the Raiders winning that 30 points to 12. Now I think I was able to only watch bits and pieces of this game, so I can't really comment too much on how the game actually went. I was only able to watch some highlights, but from what I saw, I think the Tigers actually had a pretty decent first half, but the Raiders were able to just come back in the second half and close out the game. Big talking point from this Raiders outfit was Joe Tarpany. 100 points, and he didn't even score a try, which is incredible. Tarpany was someone who some people had asked me about, and I thought he was a very good option, but the question was over his minutes. He only played 43 minutes, but scoring the 100 points in that time is incredible. Obviously, just looking at the breakdown of his points, good amount of tackles with good runs. I think what really, boosted him up was obviously going to be the couple of line break assists, the line break as well, and the offloading and the tackle breaking ability. He definitely has that tackle breaking ability in him. He's a very strong runner of the ball. So I think if you had Tarpany as a pod option to begin the season, really, really good shout. Obviously I didn't really consider him myself. And Hudson Young with that 79 point effort with the try included, very good effort from him. I think that the Raiders forwards are very common in terms of scoring tries. I think that's one kind of thing I noticed about their side. Forwards typically do score a lot of tries. Guys like, say, Josh Papali as well, and the wingers less so. So I think if you're looking for second row forwards who are a little bit cheaper than, say, others, guys like Tarpany, Hudson Young, good options, and they do have that attacking potential in their game. Josh Hodgson was a bit of a downer, I think, at only about 30 points. He really is reliant, I guess, on attacking stats to boost up his points. He doesn't quite have the work rate of some other hookers, so only getting the 30 points, not too good. He obviously had 6 missed tackles, which is quite a lot, the most in that Raiders side. So I think if you own him, I wouldn't be trading him out straight away, but wait and see kind of how he performs in the next round. I think if you wait and see in the next round and again has a low score, I think it's an easy downgrade to someone like Jaden Braley, who would definitely go up in value, and Hodgson might go down. Papali with 33 points as well, only with those 50 minutes, again, is a bit of a concerning sign. I think if you're a Papali owner, and I know there's quite a lot, I think he is one of the most commonly owned front row forwards. I guess the thing with him is that he does have the potential to score tries, but we can't call that every game, and his minutes are always a bit of a question mark given that he is so important to that Raiders side. He does get managed quite a bit, and there's a lot of forward rotation at the Raiders. Ryan James was actually probably another really big talking point with that 69 point effort coming from the 42 minutes. It was really great to actually see him go over for a try on his debut, coming back from those 2 major injuries. So I think if you did have Ryan James, not someone I had myself, but seeing that 69 point effort is really strong, and 42 minutes is a very good sign. If he's able to keep up that kind of minute rate, even when, say, the 2 Corys come back, I think he'll be a great cash cow option and definitely someone I'll be looking to bring into my team and jump on that price rise. I wouldn't maybe necessarily be playing him as a reserve, but just have him in your team to build up your squad value. In terms of the backs of the Raiders, George Williams obviously had a really solid game with a couple of try assists, and was also very involved. Say he had the goal kicking as well. Jack Wyden with that 39 point effort, not too amazing. I think he obviously looked threatening at times and was a good runner of the ball, as he always does. But I find that when he's not scoring tries, he does kind of have this 40 point floor. So I think he's very reliant on scoring the tries to boost up to those kind of 80, 90 point efforts. Rapana, if you got on Jordan Rapana, that was a really good shout as well. You got 67 points with a couple of tries thrown in there as well. But I wouldn't be expecting a couple of tries from him every game. But at that mid-price center wing position, not a bad shout. Personally, if I went to that price bracket, I'd probably be going for someone like Blake Ferguson instead. But yeah, really good pod option in Rapana if you went on him. Bailey Simonson with that 40-point effort. I actually did play Simonson in my starting centre wing. I played him best in the matchup against the Tigers. And the 40 points is not amazing, but at 205k, we'll happily take that. And he was able to get that try assist thrown in there as well to help increase his points. But yeah, overall, pretty decent showing from the Raiders. I think the main talking points would be Josh Hodgson, Ryan James, Joe Tarpany, and then maybe say Bailey Simonson. And moving on to the Tigers, I thought Dane Laurie looked really good at fullback, and that 47-point effort is really encouraging, given that he's also very cheaply priced at 223k, I think. So yeah, if you're a Dane Laurie owner, very happy with that. He'll definitely go up in value if he's able to keep that up. Jacob Little, I think, was obviously a very big question mark in terms of what his minutes were going to be coming into this game. Very encouraging to see that he played the full 80 minutes, and he also was able to score a try. So that 71 points from him is really, really encouraging. I think he's definitely going to be a good cash cow option. Joe Offengawi looked quite good as well for that 56-point effort from him. And I think at the 340k mark, he looks to be a good mid-range cash cow option too. I guess we'll just have to keep an eye on those minutes, because 44 minutes is probably a bit on the lower end of what I was expecting from Offengawi. I was probably thinking he'd be playing up to the 50-minute mark. But if you have Offengawi, even if you didn't play him, 56 points is very good to have at the beginning of the season, and he'll probably go up in value if he's able to kind of maintain that average. Apart from that, Luke Brooks with that 56 point is actually a decent effort from him, given that he had the goal kicking benefit as well. He did have a few kind of poor end of tackle 5 options, but he was able to get a try assist, line break assist as well. So I think that 56-point effort for his price is good showing as well. Nofaluma, again, he was able to score the try, but that 59-point effort, for his price is going to make him go down in value, which is what we want as non-owners. Obviously, if you're an owner, that 59-point effort is not bad, but it's not great. And if you're a non-owner like me, that's really good to see, given that I think he'll go down in value if if he holds up that 59-point effort in the next few rounds. Aside from that, Alex Twal doing what he normally does, 58 points in 60 minutes, just being a good worker. And Stefano Wetchikamanu with that 27 points coming from the bench. Encouraging to see, given that he's priced at 186k. That's all we really need from him, and he'll go up in value. So good cash cow option there. So moving on to the final round of the game, we've got the Dragons versus Sharks, with the Sharks taking this one out 32 points to 18. This was actually quite an enjoyable game to watch. I guess that local derby always, adds to the appeal of the games like this. I think the main talking points out of the Dragons, like the only Dragons player that I own is Terrell Fuimeono, who was named at 13. I don't think these scores have actually been updated yet. I think he actually ended up on 56, which is a really good effort from him. And given that he's priced at 260k, I'll happily take that. I didn't play him on my team, but he's sitting there hopefully going up in value if he's able to maintain that. Apart from that, Matt Duffy at times looked pretty threatening as well. Zach Lomax obviously was able to contribute with the goal kicking, but if the Dragons aren't scoring too many tries, he's obviously not going to be able to contribute too much in terms of his points. And Andrew McCullough doing what he would normally do, playing 80 minutes, making a bunch of tackles, 59 of them according to these stats. Blackbird only getting like 21 points pre-updates in this game. Not good for his owners, given that he's pretty decently owned, I think at about 15% of the game. But yeah, for me, the Dragons, I think it's still a lot of question marks over like that minute forward rotation. We're not quite sure if that's what it's going to be come Teamless Tuesday. We'll have to wait and see on that. But if you got on Fuimeono just as a bit of a last minute kind of cheap second row forward option, I think if he gets 56, which is what I think he might have been updated to, then that's a pretty good showing from him as a cash cow. And finally, the Sharks, a few good decent performances from them. I think obviously the main one is going to be Matt Moylan, scoring 56, very encouraging, and at his price, if he's able to keep that up, he'll be able to go up in value. Although I think the next game can't quite remember who the next game is against for the Sharks, but I think the next couple are pretty tough, aside from this game against the Dragons. But I think someone like me, especially who has Lachlan Lamb, who's priced more expensive than Moylan, if Moylan has another decent game, I may make that switch come round 3, just so that I don't lose too much value on Lamb, and Moylan should go up in price. Maybe a few people had William Kennedy, who scored a couple of tries and looked pretty good. I think Chad Townsend was a player I saw who was being thrown up as potentially a backup half option. He performed pretty well with a 65-point effort. And so I think, if you have him, you'd be pretty happy with that. But overall, I don't think there's too many other talking points out of this Dragons-Sharks game. I think the main players we were looking at were, say, Matt Moylan and, say, Fuimeono as a cheap second row forward option. And I think they both show that they're able to be good cash cow options moving forward. Alright guys, we made it to the end of the video. That's my kind of wrap up of the first round of the NRL season. It's really good to have the footy back, and hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And let me know in the comments below what you guys scored for this round. I'd be really interested to see. I'll do a shout out in my next video to the highest point scorer in our overall group league. And if you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. And do consider subscribing, as I'll be continuing to put out videos throughout the 2021 SuperCoach season. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next video.